Welcome to the world of Street Fighter 3. Prepare for battle.
One box could leave you messed up and fractured. Block these uppercuts, they may leave you captured. May the best fighter win and win again. Battle to the top until his life ends. But if his life ends and he starts to decay, may one of his street soldiers avenge things. See you talking to the game, couldn't be talking to me. I got enough to beat and more soldiers to bury. You know we just clicked in and made you realize this game is twice as hard. You see that with your own eyes. You're on the way to choose your type of life cause you gotta. I tell you from now, which fighter will be the hotter. I don't think you want this one, just practice. Just challenge me when you're ready with your tactics. High punch, the spin kicks, watch your back split. I see you in the air when I make you backflip. Select to make your first pick. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Choose and pick the best one. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Select to make your first pick. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Choose and pick the best one. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Select to make your first pick. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Choose and pick the best one. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Select to make your first pick. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Choose and pick the best one. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. One box could leave you messed up and fractured. Block these uppercuts, they may leave you captured. May the best fighter win and win again. Battle to the top until his life ends. But if his life ends and he starts to decay, may one of his street soldiers avenge things. See you talking to the game, couldn't be talking to me. I got enough to beat and more soldiers to bury. You know we just clicked in and made you realize this game is twice as hard. You see that with your own eyes. You're on the way to choose your type of life cause you gotta. I tell you from now, which fighter will be the hotter. I don't think you want this one, just practice. Just challenge me when you're ready with your tactics. High punch, the spin kicks, watch your back split. I see you in the air when I make you backflip. Select to make your first pick.
From the chat. There you go. What's up, guys? It is your headmaster here at the Gaming Academy, GQ Asian Dude. It is I almost said November, December 2nd, 2025. So how are y'all doing? Hope you love my loud ass shirt. I decided to wear that on stream, add a little bit of color. I figured it has a little bit of Gamer Quotient color to it. So figured it'd be a matching shirt. So awesome. Hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving. You guys are thankful. Gratitude was all across the board. And there's some things you guys can reflect on towards this upcoming new year. I know I did. So, and I want to make sure that you guys, do your own self-reflection for your own journey, because tonight we got a lot to talk about. Matter of fact, settle in, grab your notebooks, and tighten your headband. Class 55 is coming up. We got a pretty loaded syllabus tonight. We're spanning decades of gaming history, from rumors hotter than Quake 3, or the Quake 3 rocket jump. You guys remember that? We talked about that last time. And a roundtable topic that hits right into nostalgia. It's a pretty big one. Did the 90s build a different kind of gamer? It's a question shaped by CRT screens, limited lives, rage-inducing checkpoints, and late-night cheat code hunts, and friends huddled around a magazine or a dial-up forum trying to figure out how to beat that one boss. God, don't you miss those nights. But tonight, we're breaking it all down. But before we dive in, we got stories from the Vault, from Diablo, Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, Dragon Force, Quake 3 Arena, and so much more in Memory Card Chronicles, followed by the biggest headlines and the hottest rumors and the inevitable chaos that is Quick Bites cross the rumor mill. Then we take our seats back to the roundtable for one of the most important conversations of the season. And of course, later tonight, we will end something mythic, something cinematic, and something that'll send you to your week with power in your heart. The final boss. Class 55 is starting now. All right, so I don't do this by myself because I'd drive me crazy. I'd be in the hospital. So let me introduce you to the other two horsemen of the apocalypse at Gamer Quotient, Blazing Ace Nelson and the Tragically Elite.
Horsemen of the apocalypse. I'll take it.
Depending what Darksiders game I'm from, I appreciate it.
I got dibs on war. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, okay,
that's pretty good.
You know what? I'll stick with Strife. That's cool with me. I like the two guns anyway.
Well, you're either the girl or death, Dick.
I'm pretty sure.
Well, I get the pick of them.
I actually like death myself.
No,
didn't
that
know-
was my favorite of the
Really?
3 games that have been out. Yeah, easily was the second one.
Yeah.
That one just hit all the different notes for me. The first one was like fun and all, but it felt like God of War with the Horseman of the Apocalypse over it. And that's not a bad comparison.
Yeah.
It's just I wasn't what I was looking for at the time. The second one had more of that like RPG feel where you can kind of
Yeah,
choose
I
your skills and
100%
create
agree
that.
with you on that. The first one felt like playing Twilight Princess. Honestly, I didn't make that connection until like while I was in the middle of the game. Basically, when I got the hook shot, I was like, basically, like this is Zelda. So,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
that's
no complaints and that.
the best way to describe it. It's Zelda meets God of War.
Right, which on paper sounds fantastic.
Like many things in life, on paper. How was your guys' turkey days?
Oh, it's pretty solid actually. Did some cooking for some of my friends. I made some deviled eggs and catfish.
Oh, nice.
I bet you
That's
see my
like that's
family.
like saying I made lumpia and like
Nice.
pasta or something. I didn't, but I'm just saying that's what it would sound like if I said that.
Ah,
I got
well, that
KFC.
does sound good.
Hey, KFC
I
is
got-
still a damn good Thanksgiving,
I
man.
got KFC. I got a whole eight piece to myself. It was great. That's all I gotta say. So awesome. Well, Nick, you went out of town, right? With family?
Yeah, I went back to see my family. That's why I had to miss the last one, getting a baby ready on short notice to go down to see my family on the island. It was a little tough, so I just kind of got cut for time.
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean, it was good. Black Friday was great. Good football. And then beyond that, yeah, it was good to see family, man. Glad to be back.
The drive was okay. Wasn't like crazy or anything.
Oh yeah, I've done that drive for years. When I first went up to college too, so that's nothing. I can zone out.
That's none. I could drive there in my sleep. That's what you
Please don't.
Wouldn't suggest it.
This guy said that. That's what he said. All right. Well, let's relive our childhood memories because we got a lot of nostalgia tonight. Let's kick ourselves off with This Week in Gaming History with some memory card chronicles. Yeah, should be a Nintendo
Oh,
PS2. We're gonna change up all the loading screens, every time we do it. But yeah, if it's your first time here, Memory Card Chronicles, we're basically doing our last season's This Week of Gaming History compiled into days, where we pick one game and we just chat about a nice memory that we have with said game. So, with that said, let's get cracking here.
Speaking of just like throwbacks and what you said in the intro, talking about like the '90s being a different gamer, I still am so thankful that GameFAQs has so many of these games still available in the old like ASCII2 like writing too.
yes.
Man, there's some of these older games like I really needed that GameFAQs for.
No, I agree with you on that. Especially like I don't know, older like PS2 games. I feel like those have more robust like walkthroughs.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm still legit going back and just like getting a refresher course, just reading through some of those, especially for my Dynasty Warriors 3 playthrough.
Oh yeah.
It's like, wait a minute, how did I get that weapon again? Oh yeah.
Honestly, I think GameFAQs is where I figured out how to get the fourth weapon for that game. So it's funny that you bring that up.
A lot of JRPGs and like special bosses or hidden bosses, like I only found them because of GameFAQs.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure. GameFAQs. If whoever made it and you're watching, shout out to GameFAQs. All right. Well, here's a game that I want to shout out for tonight in 1996. Let's get this bad boy going. The big D, from the big B,
Heck
yeah. The OG Diablo Blizzard. I'm pretty sure I didn't see my friends for like 3 weeks when this game. That is my core memory. Like I started. Well, actually, I take that back. I didn't see a majority of my friends, but one of my friends, Matthew, the one that has the big PC boner, right? He was always hanging out with me, like and we were wanting to play like traded off, like logging on to different characters, right? He wanted to play the mage. I wanted to play the fighter. He kind of made fun of me because like your fighter sucks, and I was like, dude, mage dies in 2 hits. And then later on, I find out that the mage is way better at the end game stuff than the fighter. And so, that was my core memory. I was like, oh yeah, your character sucks. Then I figured out my character sucks.
Shout out to Chop too in chat. Good to see you again. The sound cards, sound cards back in the day on PC, man, they were rough if you didn't have the right card. I remember like saving up to get the Sound Blaster 2.
Yep.
Like that just like
God.
stands out of my head. Just like that's when you had real depth of sound, right?
What's crazy is the amount of variations in sound cards. And I was like, how much better sound can be? I don't understand. There were so many like Sound Blaster, like insert extra acronym at the end of it.
Well, I
right?
remember like at the Sound Blaster, like the Audigy 2. I loved that word so
Yeah,
much as a little kid. I named one of my characters in some RPG Audigy. I was like, oh, it's so badass.
That's what I'm saying. Like there was so much, and we were just littered with like crazy '90s art, like graphics on those boxes, and everything was kind of like retro wave / '90s like Trapper Keeper.
I mean,
Kinda
that's
looking.
so much why I love the old like voodoo cards in their
Yeah.
boxes, man.
Yeah, actually, when we talk about my choice for December 2nd, we're gonna go back to Voodoo here. So,
Perfect.
do you guys? I mean, this was one of my first computer games back in high school. Had a lot of fun with. I actually bought the huge box that came with this. And I think my favorite thing about Diablo is stay a while and listen. Like that's never gone away. Like it's been a meme. Like Deckard Cain
Oh,
is
yeah.
legendary in like the video game community.
It gets better and better every game too with him.
Yeah.
I didn't really play the first one. I'll be perfectly honest. Like when I was playing PC games back in the day when this came out, I was not playing Diablo. I was definitely playing like Duke Nukem 3D by this point, if I remember right, or like leading up to it. A lot of RTSs. A couple weeks ago, I was talking about how much I love Command and Conquer. That's what I was playing.
Yeah.
I found out like way later in life that my wife actually played this game. She was not a gamer when we first met, so it was kind of like I wasn't sure if it was going to work out, right? And then I found out well after the fact that like Diablo, she played like very young. She played Diablo. I played the hell out of Diablo 2, so that was like my experience with the series. But I never played the first one, man. I love watching the gameplay for it, right? And it just you can see where it kind of started before it got to 2, and where 2 took a lot of its like gameplay elements and just like updated them. So I mean, it's cool to see. I hear so much about it. I just never sat down and like played through it. I've certainly tried it from time to time. I know with like the Hellfire add-on stuff, like it's like people
with the monk.
to go back in, but yeah, I never sat through and played it.
Yeah, I think if you play 2, you don't really need to play the first one. Matter of fact, I think didn't they do like a little Easter egg to play 1 and 2 like for a little bit, right? I think that they had like a secret portal that you could take and remastered. So that was kind of fun and kind of neat throwback to that callback. So awesome.
Chop, talking about like Duke, a lot of times it's just about what your parents were buying you or what you're able to get a hold of or what your friends had. I don't know if I had too much of a choice. I don't think my parents knew what Duke was, and I definitely got it on shareware to start. Like, so.
Yeah, I remember getting Duke Nukem, and my dad was okay with it because we watched Terminator and all those violent movies.
Right. I think that was probably it. But then you get into the content of the game, and it's not.
My mom did not like his like fancy cussing. It wasn't really cussing, but it's like his verbiage. She didn't like that. Especially
million bastards are going to pay for shooting up my ride.
She wasn't a fan. All right. Well, I actually never played this, but I wanted to play this game. So tell us about this legendary game right here.
Oh man, Dragon Force. Besides having a really kick-ass name, the reason I wanted to highlight this one is because, again, another one that I played well after the fact, but it was a Working Designs cover art. Which, if you worked in a video game store, you collected for these systems, Working Designs cover arts always tends to be like almost like lithography, really shiny, really cool. Some of the best like cover arts you'd get from this era inside those jewel cases, if the jewel case was good. These things were collectible, man. And working in a retro store, whenever they came along, they stood out anytime you saw one of these. So this was one I started collecting for Dreamcast and Saturn when I was working at the retro store. And this was one of the first ones I got because we happened to have it at the time. And the price point wasn't egregious. Like I wasn't picking up Panzer Dragoon Saga or anything like that and spending $300 at the time. So I got to play it. And honestly, like one thing to note, this was 96, man. 1996. This thing was a technical marvel for its time. It had it had 2D sprites with no slowdown, despite lots of them being on the screen at once. So it running so well and looking so good in this era was it blew my mind when I played it. But it's also like a strategy RPG setup that has like formations. And I just remember like a really good story with the characters, like character written stuff was really, really good when I played through it. So it's just like, it was like this triple whammy of just like, oh, this is all really cool stuff when the cover art sold me. And then, it'd been a long time since I was like, oh man, I can afford to pick up a Working Designs game. I see James over there on the wall trying to find one. Ace, did you play Dragon Force or any of the Working Design games?
Hey,
Blue.
Oh God, like like a lot of the Working Designs it was Working Designs and Treasure that had like the really killer box arts for their games. Like there's just trying to remember which ones I played right offhand. I know I did play a little bit of Dragon Force though, and
what was that? Thunder Gearbolt, whatever that one, the shooter. That was a fun one.
And yeah, just it's still mind blowing. I mean, 96 was just a good year for games that came out that just displayed so much technical mastery, even though they were limited by the technology available at the time.
I didn't find a Working Designs game, but I do have this. Wait, where'd it go? This really cool cover of Alundra. Look at this.
Yeah.
That's
I was
cool.
going to say, and Chop called out Elemental Gearbolt as well on the PS.
Yeah, that was the one I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Elemental Gearbolt.
Vanguard Bandits, the Lunar Games.
Lunar Games.
Yeah. God, there was a couple other ones. Let me pull up this list. Arc the Lad, Silhouette Mirage, like pretty cool.
Actually, next time y'all get the chance to talk with Duder, ask him to bust out his copies of Lunar, because I know he still has both the jewel cases, I think for the PS1 releases for Eternal Blue and Silver Star Story.
Yeah, but do you have a copy of Vigilante 8 though?
Hey, don't foreshadow that too much, man. But yeah, I pulled up a couple other pictures here, but like Vey, Popful Mail, Albert Odyssey, Growlancer on the PS2. Growlancer Generations was another one, just kind of that crazy, like shiny cover art, something that stood out. Mm-hmm. But yeah, man, it sold me, like I said, on its cover art, but it ended up being a really good game and something where you look at it in 96, you're like, man, this was kind of ahead of its time, or at least it handled so well. It felt like not an underground hit, but kind of like that secret. Not a lot of people had a Saturn in my life, and it's just like,
this was one of those games that came out at the end life of the Saturn, and it made it extremely rare. So I was jealous. I really wanted a copy of it because I just loved the aesthetic. I just like anime and / RPG strategy. Super cool. Hundreds of characters on the screen. I'm always down for that. That's great. Definitely not $200 now. I'm sure it's way more. That's cool.
Yeah, just really cool cover arts.
For Odyssey,
Magic Knight Rayearth.
Dude, the Sega CD cases are like the number one thing. Terrible to replace.
Well, that's one thing I loved about working at the retro stores. You learn really quickly. Buy the cheap sports games for their good cases and swap out the cases because it's super easy to do.
Much.
I did that a lot on the PSX. I'd go like get these PSX games and then I'd go to like Goodwill and find like the 50 cents or $1 CDs because it's the jewel case is the same size. Find it in good condition, just swap it out. Pro tip for collectors out there.
There you go.
You already know.
It's a life hack for you nerds out there. Let's go.
So yeah, get a Madden game cheap, and
or
then just swap out the box.
You can get Excitebike on Nintendo.
Oh.
One of my first games on Nintendo, actually. Please tell us about it.
Easily one of mine too.
Man, like playing this as a kid was just like if there's one game that actually unlocks a lot of core memories for me, that one is it. Like not only was it like literally my first, I guess you could call it my first sports game, but also just like after going through the tracks, sitting down and actually working with the track builder and just creating all kinds of crazy stuff, all kinds of crazy tracks for my siblings to try and beat and fail miserably, or just building tracks that made absolutely no sense.
Yeah, that was me.
Like it was.
Ones where you just goes too slow the entire time because you kept doing the same like one ramp, and it's just like this is so
And then when it
boring.
bumps you up,
Yeah.
or that crazy like there was one that was like the biggest piece on the track, and you just make all that, and it'd be like, oh my god, why did I do this? This is terrible.
I mean, like there were actually a couple of times where I, took the Legos that we had and tried recreating some of the some of the Excite Bike tracks, just to see if I could.
How do I get better covers for your games? I think we have to answer that question. Also, it depends which game. Honestly, you spent the day obsessed with bikes and drawing myself on a motorcycle. That's my man right there. I love that. Yeah, it's I'm surprised. I know they did Excite Truck on the Wii, but they never really followed up on Excite Bike. And the only other place it showed up was in that like NES 25 challenge, whatever championship edition
I
on
could
the
have swore.
Switch.
I could have swore there was at least a. I thought there was an Excite Bike on the 64.
Was there? I mean, if there was, then I definitely did not. I also, you guys, when I do Memory Care Chronicles,
Yeah,
I will always say my hatred for the N64. You'll see that tonight also. I am biased against it. So, but, it does have its moments, but nah, bro, not for that's a no for me, dog. Is what I'm saying for the N64. But this next game, definitely a yes for me, even though it's Nick's game, because vehicular combat is pretty rad.
It's very rad. I actually chose so this was the cover art for the first game, but Vigilante 8's second offense was the one that released. Yeah, it's your first offense for this podcast. Mark it, chat. This was the game that came out on the 1st of December 1999. So I'm calling out this one specifically because I do have some experience actually playing this series. I loved this series. I did play it on 64, so I know James has a lot of hate for it. The PSX version is the one that released on this day in gaming history. I did play this one with a friend when it came out. I really enjoyed games like Carmageddon when I was younger, and Twisted Metal. So for me, it was like being able to run around in this game and have vehicular combat for a game that I could own. Again, I had the 64 version of the first and second one. I really got into it, especially I think the first one had a level where you play on a ski hill. And you're riding around like it's on a God, I can't remember what the map was called, but it was on like I pretended we were on Stevens Pass. Like you were just sitting up there and you're on the ski slopes and you're trying to like just kill each other with weapons. I just remember picking up the weapons in this game, having a lot of fun. And it's that kind of thing where very similar to Twisted Metal, I had the kind of like crazy caricatures of characters that you could choose in their vehicles. I just had a blast playing these, man. I just remember staying up late at night and playing this one on PSX at my buddy's house. But yeah, vehicular combat, man. Who knew? Everyone did it, and very few did it well. But I really enjoyed Vigilante 8. But I feel like it didn't get as much notoriety as other ones.
Yeah, Twisted Metal definitely took the spotlight for vehicular combat because wasn't there like one more vehicular combat game that that nobody paid attention to? It was very obscure because Vigilante 8 was the off-brand Twisted Metal.
Yeah, it was like this was the Temu version. I mean, when you're watching the video here too of like the gameplay, it seems a little sparse when you compare it to something like Twisted Metal.
Road Trip. You're right.
Road Trip. Yeah. Yeah, this one it seems sparse when you look at it like level design, but it made up for it, which I felt like the attitude behind it too was just very again of the era. But yeah, man, I played the heck out of the first one and the second one. Yeah. You said you were into it?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was so I played it on the 64 and we had like the 4-player split screen and that's like one of the best things about the N64 is being able to play with 3 other your buddies on the same system. But it was like the library was pretty limited to that, right? So I only enjoyed those games and I'll go about that in a bit on why this thing. So last week I talked about it because of Killer Instinct Gold, because I was waiting for Killer Instinct that was in the arcade, and I got this thing that resembled a fracture of the power of Killer Instinct, and I was like, "What is this? This is not what was promised. This is not what the sexy voice told me."
Available for your home in 1995.
I was like, "You lied to me. Like, that's not what the game looks like." That's kind of why. But a game that I don't have a disdain for is Quake, and also especially Quake 3 Arena, because this one was the reason why I got a Voodoo video card, because of this
Hell
game
yeah.
to power up my PC at the time. And I wasn't really into like Unreal, but I was really into Quake. And one of the reasons why I was into Quake was because at the time, GameWorks had a 2-floor level Quake arcade setup.
Yeah, that's right. They did.
Oh,
Yeah, and there were like I think there were like 4 people on the ground floor and 4 people on the top floor, and it'd be a big death match. And I think like what was interesting is that if your team was winning, your seat would go up to the second floor as you're like winning, and then if you're losing, you go back down to the first floor. I remember that. It was so cool. Yeah, it was one of those like worth it to go to the arcade and experience because of those little things, right?
yeah.
But yeah, Quake 3 Arena on the PC came out in 1999 on December 2nd. Technically, my first experience with arena shooters, because I did skip the Unreal games. I did play Quake 1 and 2, but I did it for the story. Quake 3 specifically only has an arena shooter. The story is the arena, like you're battling towards the top, right? And like I said, and like I mentioned, one of the reasons why I got a Voodoo 3DFX chip Voodoo card, because my computer wouldn't be able to run this if I didn't get that graphics card, because I was limited to like 2D pixel games, and not high res, high polygon count video games. So yeah, pretty much this is it's fast paced. It's like, if you think you're good with like shooters now, bro, Quake 3 will make you cry. The last boss in the game is a Shaolin monk named Zero, like Xearo, and he has a railgun. And you guys start off on opposite sides of this floating map, like Smash Bros. And if you peek on the corner, he'll just snipe you and kill you.
Oh God.
That's how crazy the last boss is. So you actually have to like shoot a rocket in his direction so you can you can bait him to get hit. You have to be really smart with it, from what I remember. So good memories, a lot of fun. Definitely tested my PC when it first came out. So
Well, and it tested a lot of people because it's hard to like understate how important this change was going to this arena shooter kind of vibe with it. Just the way it was sped up. I mean, Doom and Quake, like they changed PC gaming and then changed like what FPS was, and then they started to go with this arena style, this like Twitch fast-paced kind of thing, and it completely changed the game again. Like we're talking about one of the reasons I really got into Counter-Strike was games like Quake, that just Twitch reflex, that kind of like just quick action, and the announcer just shouting out like when things were happening, like overkill and stuff. Man, I just loved it so much.
And I think it also had like an EDM soundtrack too. Like it was pretty good.
It was bumping.
You get headphones on, you're in. Like, I'm here.
When I think about like getting together with friends and doing a LAN party, like a retro LAN party, this is the kind of game I'd be thinking of. Like just doing an arena shooter, run around in one map, just frag. Let's frag, bro.
Shout out to Chop for being able to beat Zero, because I can honestly tell you I was not able to beat Zero. He was definitely hard without cheating. Also, Quake 3 Arena also had one of the first mods that applied Dragon Ball skins to the characters. It was a mod called Bid to Power. So check that out if you guys are curious what that looks like. It was really funny, and as a Dragon Ball fan, you're gonna want that as a Quake 3 Arena. So check that out. Our next game here on the, what date is this? Also on the 2nd for Nick is Baldur's Gate. I skipped this one because I ended up going the EverQuest route.
Oh, not surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. This one I am calling out because Ace also wanted to call out this game, which is great. So I'll have him talk about it. But I really wanted to call out this one because of how much we interacted with this game working at the video game store together. Whenever someone would come in and want a couch co-op game, this invariably was one of the ones you'd mention. It was one of the few couch co-op like Diablo style hack and slash or Diablo-esque hack and slash, but set in the Forgotten Realms universe. Plus, you had character customization. like I said, Co-Optimus as a website was something we relied on heavily. People would come in and want to get their significant other or their friends together to play couch co-op, but there's very few games, especially nowadays, that offer that. And people just kind of want that feel from the past, and this one was always recommended. This one and the second one as well. But Ace, what are your memories with it, man?
This was actually one of the other games that I would sit down and play with my brother. So around that same time where he hazed me with Lu Bu and Dynasty Warriors 3, he also had Baldur's Gate, and this was actually my first time sitting down with a Baldur's Gate game and actually, recognizing it as such. So it's like I'm sitting down, I'm really, getting into this, working on customizing my character, helping my brother out as we're like going through, tackling the stages together and also, buffing up our stats. He always liked playing the warrior classes, again, as evidenced by his picks of Guan Yu and Xiahou Dun and Dynasty Warriors. He always played the heavy hitters, so I was like, okay, let me pick up on the characters that are, more intelligence based. So, spellcasters, or at the very least, speedy characters that can also, provide support. So it was very much a tag team experience for me and my brother.
So I call that this one as one of the ones we'd always kind of shout out for like couch co-op when people ask. Do you remember one of the other series on PS2 for co-op we went to?
Me?
Yeah.
It was EverQuest, Battle of something, Return to Arms.
Champions of Norath.
Yeah, well, the second one was Return to Arms, right?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, but you're right, Champions of Norath. That was like, when if you have Deep Impact, you had Armageddon. This was like the era of that. There was always the other game or the other movie that like echoed the other movie.
I'll let chat decide which one is which. This was one like some people still have like a lot of nostalgia for it. I'm really sad that 3 is pretty much never happening and has never happened. They did that kind of reboot of Dark Alliance that failed really hard. It was one of the things, like, it was a good IP, but just from what I remember, because I've actually got my friends together, we actually played it. Yeah. Super buggy, kind of rough, like some good stuff under the hood, but just, man, it kind of faltered.
It just wasn't finished. Honestly, I saw what they were going for. I played it too with my buddy, and same as you, because we love the idea, right? And it's like, oh, it's a modern day console game. Awesome. Just fell short.
Yeah.
Short.
Awesome. Well, no more falling short. Thanks, Baldur's Gate.
Thank you, Baldur's Gate. Thank you for the memories. All right. So the next one here, it's not a game, but it is a console.
It did change the game.
You're right. Change the game thoroughly. I wanted to find a Ratchet-looking PlayStation box, just like this one that I had. And I wanted to kind of, relive the memory of when I grabbed this from the shelf and brought it home with me, right? So the PlayStation is the reason why I hate the N64. The reason for that backstory and bad memory. Last time I talked about how I wanted to wait for the N64 because of Final Fantasy, because of Killer Instinct, because I was a big arcade dude when I was a kid. And then when Killer Instinct failed to kind of move me over, because I waited for the N64 to come out, because I was like seeing these screenshots of like Final Fantasy VI and like 3D renders. And I thought that was really neat. And then, magazine EGM was like, Final Fantasy exclusive to the PlayStation. And I was like, all right, that sucks. Well, I still got KI, so let's get KI 2. Let's wait for KI 2. And then I remember it coming out, and I was like, wow, this is like what I got from the arcade to the Super Nintendo, but now it's the arcade to the N64, kind of like the same quality, right? It's kind of like a little bit nerfed because of graphical limitations. And I was like, dude, I am done waiting for you. I feel like I'm an idiot for waiting, right? So I went ahead and rushed to get a PlayStation, got Vandal Hearts as one of my first PlayStation games, and Street Fighter Alpha 1 for that. I got to have a fighting game, right? And it was at Software Etc. And I was just really happy because I was continuously saving money until I got enough for N64. And by the time that the N64 had come out, it was like almost the same price as a console and 2 games on the PlayStation, right? So that was a happy kid, but I was also unhappy about the N64. So that's my little story about that. I don't know if you guys had a crazy story about the PlayStation either.
Well, nothing as far as crazy stories, but like one of my abiding core memories of, at the very least, having my own PlayStation was, let's see, this was actually around, I want to say 99. So my brother was already in the military. This was, before we got started together on the PS2. But I remember, I had my PlayStation, alongside the Super Nintendo. I was gifted with that toolbox of classic games that I'm still pissed off I've lost. Anyway, but the one thing I remember fondly about the PlayStation was, again, just, having my own little setup. And I had spent so much time, playing some of the RPGs that I had gotten for it, like Final Fantasy VIII, actually. That was the first one that I had gotten for my own system. But I had got that, Digimon World 1 and 2, and, since I needed some fighting games, just like you, I got Street Fighter Alpha, but also, came to find out, Street Fighter Alpha, that pop open the PlayStation, put the disc in, load up to the BIOS, and then click it in, and I can listen to the music.
Yep. I think if you the trick was to leave it open and then close it once you get to the BIOS, right?
Yeah.
That's the trick. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. Kids, chat, you guys, if you're young, you probably don't know what a CD even is. You guys think it's a Blu-ray? No, it's a CD, bro. No image, all audio. Oh, Tekken 2. That's one of my favorite games on there. Cool. Well, you, Nick, you weren't a PlayStation guy, right?
No, had plenty of friends that had it. If anything, what I remember most is just learning after the fact about how Nintendo and Sony were talking about making a console together. And
yes.
how that deal went through, and then we got the PlayStation in the end, and then look how much that's changed the industry since then. I think that's one of those ones, if we ever have a biggest turning points in gaming history discussion or something, that's going to be one of my biggest, because it was just such a splintering point in the past. But also just shout out to as much as the choices for games and what we actually got for the PlayStation Classic wasn't great, the box still sticks to that classic look. It looks very similar to that, so shout out to them for that. Really nailed it.
There's a show on Amazon Prime called Game Changers, and the Nintendo episode talks about how they were planning on, since Sega did the Sega CD, Nintendo wanted their own CD, and they wanted Sony to help out with that, and hence how we got the birth of the PlayStation, because they eventually broke the deal and they went off on their own. So super interesting stuff in the industry. So neato bandito. All right, next one here is the other game why I hate the N64. All right. That train car level is just scarred into my brain, because I'm pretty sure I watched my buddy just play that stage over and over, so bad at it. So, anyway.
That's where most of us replayed it. So yeah, that's what I called out, was the train level. Enough said. This was the game I played after Rogue Squadron on the 64. I loved Rogue Squadron on the 64. So then I went back to play Shadows of the Empire, and boy, it was not the same game. Especially when you're talking about the main character named Dash Rendar. Sweet name, by the way. It still stands out. I just, his vest and everything, I just have that memory of playing this, the old blocky pixels in my head, and getting stuck on the damn train level. It's like the turbo tunnel all over again for me. And I've watched plenty of people since then, plenty of content creators that have played through that part with not much of an issue. So part of me wants to go back, but I just remember being so frustrated with it. And it started so solid too, because you start off right on the Battle of Hoth, going around in your speeder, taking out walkers. It's okay, we've got the aesthetic, we'll be fine. But yeah, man, just calling out this one, this good day in gaming history. Shadows of the Empire, maligned or loved. You're kind of no middle ground there.
So Dash Rendar, because we're talking 90s here, I had this X-Men card, and I have to share it with you guys because this is Dash Rendar.
Oh boy!
Look at that cable shoulder pads.
Yeah,
that is Dash Rendar art right there. So
yep.
Yeah, by the way, 1 out of 36 packs, you can get a Cable hologram from X-Men 94 Fleer. So keep that in mind. That was one of the cards that was one of the cards I was like really
Man.
hunting down when I was a kid.
Multiple pro tips today.
Yep. Hey man, you're gonna learn tonight something. Something or something. So all right, what do we got next here? What do we got next? Oh, this game. Who picked this? I don't know. All right.
Who picked this?
Who picked this?
Who picked this? You mean one of the best games from the era that people still talk about to this day?
Yeah.
Far Cry 3? Man, of course I'm going to compliment this game and talk about it coming out in this day of gaming history. For me, I'll be honest, this one was more about the DLC is the reason I love this game so much. Blood Dragon is probably one of my favorite DLCs ever made. Just love the aesthetic. I'm a child of watching a bunch of 80s movies and that kind of thing. So I guess that's kind of me cheating. But this one I want to call out that it is a game that still holds up to this day in terms of its writing. The big bad that's in this, the big bad guy, he is still seen as one of the best written villains to this date. And it's one of those games that when you go back and play it, yeah, there's definitely some vibes of, early 2010s in this in its gameplay, but you'll love the writing, you'll love the characters, and you really feel like Far Cry jumped from this point. 2, I think, was a little bit underplayed by a lot of people, underloved. I think it deserved better, but it was just like that gritty brown that you kind of got with 2, and running around having to take your malaria pills in that one kind of didn't sell it as well as 3 did. 3 went back to that tropical island. So this was the original Far Cry aesthetic, and it did it so well. And now we've seen what's happened to Far Cry since. I'm pretty sure 4, 5, and 6 were still running on the goodwill of 3, at least in my opinion.
That sounds about right.
I think when people were asking about games like Skyrim, I just called it Skyrim with guns.
Yeah,
basically my quick cliff notes of Far Cry, what kind of game it is.
I mean, I still see Far Cry as the tropical island kind of thing, because we had that on the Xbox too. What was it, Far Cry Predator or something like that? He had the more Primal.
Yeah,
Primal was the one where we went back into the past,
the caveman one.
Yeah, the caveman one. But still, I thought the original Far Cry 3, and even everyone out after that, I still had this image of this tropical paradise that you're running around in. I think that's one of the reasons I loved playing Far Cry 6 so much, because you got a little bit more of the story, you got a little more of the villain, you got the good writing, and it's back to that more tropical-esque kind of thing. So maybe I'm just a sucker for that when it comes to that series. This is still one, despite what you will say about Ubisoft and their games constantly feeling like the one before it, I still love playing the Far Cry games.
Yeah.
And it started for me, honestly, with 3 really kicked it off. So
that's kind of how I felt with Just Cause. Just Cause 3 was really where it took off for me. And that was really fun. You're on an island and you're just traversing the island with all these gadgets and tools. So it's really, really fun. IMO. Neato.
That's fair.
All right. The oddball, the stepchild of the Xenoblade games. This one is Aces.
Yeah, you could call it actually, that's part of the reason why this one's actually my favorite of the series, or the favorite of the Xenoblade games, because it's the oddball. It's the one that's got the more modern vibe to it. But at the same time, just the game is so vast, and there's so much to explore, so much to see, and just this sheer sense of scale that you get from playing the game, even from the start, just venturing out of the colony. Well, not even venturing out of the colony, just at the beginning of the game, when you get, when your little escape pod actually gets opened up, from the moment your character opens their eyes to, right after you finish customizing them, you're running along this path, and then you hit a clearing where you just see that vast expanse of the world, and you're just going, "Oh, I get to run through all of that." And then in about chapter 6, you get your mech, and then it's like, "Oh, I get to fly all of that." And then the stuff you fight gets bigger too, and just how how the scale just continues increasing as you go through the game is so. It's a fantastic experience.
I'll be honest, this is another one where I remember the cover art more than the game.
That's fair.
Because I just remember seeing this so often and thinking it was so cool. I almost bought a Wii U for it.
Like this, I
Very
mean, I got
expensive
this on
little
the
game.
Wii U and on the Switch.
All right, they re-released it on the Switch. So, what was like a core memory for this game for you?
Again, just definitely my first time actually sitting down and playing it on my Wii U. You know, I was, just getting the hang of using the, using the touchpad to, navigate the map.
That
And
touchpad, man.
The Switch Proto? Yeah.
and again, just between that and, when I finally, oh, the the missions you actually have to go through to, like, at least in the original version, the missions you have to go through to actually unlock your character's license to actually start using the mechs. Man, I remember the sigh of relief I breathed when I finally unlocked it. And then I get in, it's like, okay, this is kind of cool. We got the biped mode, but I lost it when I saw it transform for the first time and went into the high speed vehicle mode, and I was just like, bro, they didn't have this in Xenogears. What the?
They didn't have a lot in Xenogears.
There's a lot that they should have had, but anyway, we could go off on a complete tangent. But yeah, it's definitely one that I had. It was another one of those games that I had no problem getting for multiple systems because I just liked it that much.
Well, a lot of people were afraid it was going to be stuck in the Wii U, so thank God they put it back on the Switch. So here's a game that's available on everything: Switch, PlayStation, Steam, and it's probably a game you guys never heard of. You guys might have heard a game called Magica, because that's the game that really kind of took the spotlight over Nine Parchments. But Nine Parchments, if you have the gameplay, it is a very like whimsical, very like nice Diablo arcade-ish kind of game. So it reminds me of like old school arcade games, but you're casting spells. And the gimmick of the game is that when you combine different spells, you create different types of magic. And why this is a core memory for me is because when this was out during COVID, I played. So 3 other friends and I were playing this game, and we were basically like, we were reenacting Harry Potter, like we didn't know anything.
Yeah.
But the whole mission was for you to find 9 pieces of paper for the ultimate spell, and the nine parchments have flown across the land, and you have to get them back, right? And there's some things where like the bosses have certain weaknesses, and each mage that you pick has a specialty. Like one's more like fire, one has a higher mana base, right? Stuff like that. So it's really fun. It's like almost like the .emu, like beat 'em ups, but like this is magic, right? So it's stuff like that. I just remember having a good time being stuck at home and just like playing this with some friends and like kind of like figuring out which magic combinations work. And yeah, that was it. I just wanted to kind of spotlight that, for a lighthearted game for fun. Gives me trying vibes also.
The way you're talking about the spell work in that game, it kind of reminds me of Wizard of Legend.
Yeah, Wizard of Legend, Magica does the same thing. It's a very common thing that they did during this, like, let's make a wizard game, right? But it's kind of unfortunate. Like, it's only one player. But like, for example, if 2 wizards are shooting that ice beam, it would make a bigger beam together.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah, that's kind of how and then you can like really kill some bosses super quick when you have the right team comp, right? So,
Cool.
no, I highly recommend that for anybody looking into it.
Sweet.
All right, what's the next one we got here, Nick?
Well, I don't have a game for this day in gaming history, but I did have a memory of something that did happen and reading about it. So I actually am highlighting on the 5th of December 2000 when Microsoft bought Digital Anvil. So, like I said, I don't specifically have a game, but I can remember Digital Anvil. They made a little game called Starlancer. If you don't remember that one, I definitely recommend that. But also the follow-up to it. That being said, Microsoft acquired them in the year 2000, the year that they released Starlancer, and Starlancer released to pretty high acclaim. They folded that company into what was then Microsoft Game Studios. The CEO ended up leaving, but stayed as creative consultant on one of my personal favorite games of all time, Freelancer, basically the follow-up to that. So unfortunately, that team closed down in the year 2006. The last game that they pushed out, which if you don't remember this one, It's one of the original games for the original Xbox, but Brute Force. I don't know if you played that one. Yeah, Starlancer. Starlancer with this sweet Microsoft hidden up in the corner.
Brute Force was actually one of the major games I played on the original Xbox.
I would say this was like the Guardians of the time.
Kind of reminds me of so on the 64 there's plenty of games we tried to play with friends, right? We had GoldenEye and stuff like that. If we want to play a shooter game, maybe like Jet Set or what was it, Jet Force Gemini.
Yep.
But then there was also a game called Armorines.
Oh my god, I knew you were gonna say that.
It was not good. Armorines reminds me a little bit of like what Brute Force was, where it's just like it wasn't very clean. It felt like a little rough around the edges. It wasn't a bad game. It was definitely better than Armorines, don't get me wrong. But yeah, no, it's just I completely forgot that was the Digital Anvil team that got folded into MGS, and they had worked on Brute Force. But yeah, man, I just wanted to call out that team at Digital Anvil because I still love Freelancer. It's still one of my favorite games, and Starlancer was a really solid game too.
I love the eagle and
right, almost like a little propaganda-ish. It reminds me a little bit of like Starship Troopers, but not.
It gives me like BattleTech vibes. Well, we're gonna go back in the past here, way back on the Super Nintendo, where I played a little game on December 6th, 1991.
Yo, Joe and Mac.
Joe and Mac, two of the most hardworking Midwest names in America. Joe, also known as Caveman Ninja in Japan, a prehistorical 2-player fun based on the arcade game Caveman Ninja. Because back in the day, like for some reason when they ported games over, they had to make it they had to westernize it, right? So Caveman Ninja probably wasn't like too hot on everybody's radar, but Joe and Mac, the two cave bros, that would hit Americans. My experience with this, well, I was a big fan of Contra as a kid, so I try to find games very similar to it. As you can see, it is basically just a shoot 'em up platform game, and that's it. Honestly, like that was it. I just enjoyed the game. I liked the characters. Maybe the hot girls had something to do with it, but I thought it was funny. The artwork kind of reminded me of like Sunday Comics. There was a lot of games from Midway that really had this art style. I think Trog was one of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, like just overall, I just kind of like this genre, and this is one of my more memorable games out there, aside from Gun Force. And I'm not naming Contra or any other super popular shoot 'em up game.
This was one of those games where I started to recognize like certain dev teams without realizing, like Data East, like seeing their logo on games like this, and just like that's my childhood too.
Yep. They did some weird stuff too. Like I think they did a RoboCop game. I think also. So stuff like that. It brings me back. So I want as well. Okay. Now this one here, the next one here is not mine, but I'm glad it was brought up to the segment because I have some stuff to say about this game.
You have some stuff to say. Let's hear what you have to say.
I hope NeoWiz and Round 8 Studio makes a Liza P version of this game. That's it. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I love the fact that they took like a Grim Fairy Tale and made it like a cool Souls game. If they do something with Alice or the other ones, the other fairy tales, I would love that. Alice in Wonderland, Snow White, and stuff like that.
Maybe do something more with Hansel and Gretel.
Yeah, that too. I mean, they have a whole list, basically.
Yeah, this was one of those games that I definitely wanted to call out because it's a very specific part of like gaming history as a whole. When this one came out, for me, it was recognizing American McGee's name beyond having like the freest name in all the land. I just remember him because he started off in software support for Wolfenstein, so he was tied to the guys at Doom. And Hexen and Quake and all that. He eventually broke off and did his own, like there was a couple games there that came out that was all about like American McGee's whatever. Like there was
Ooh.
this Scrapland. I want to say Madness Returns. This was the later one we got on like PS3.
Mhm.
But this one came out in the year 2000, and it was very unique for its time. I mean, even looking at this right now, it was pretty dark. This was like a really dark twist on the classic Alice in Wonderland story. Really creative level design, which obviously he'd been doing design on like Quake and Doom and all that stuff. So like cutting his teeth on that and then jumping into this game. It has that gothic atmosphere that really kind of put it on the map. It really stood out with like I hesitate to say the alternative crowd, but it was definitely like it wasn't a super popular game, but it had a very specific vibe. Or you would shop at Hot Topic and Spencer's like
Gosh,
on
it's
purpose.
yeah.
But I just remember this because the story really stood out to me. Alice and the focus on her journey of recovery really resonated with people, like her mental health. Like it took this like more adult take on what Alice in Wonderland was, and I thought it was a really interesting thing that stood out at the time when not a lot of things were kind of tackling that. So
Yeah.
if you weren't looking for this kind of style of game, you kind of wanted to play it for the game. If you haven't, definitely check it out. It's super interesting to see. And again, look at this as like this was the year 2000 that it was doing this, and it was a really big inflection point for American McGee and his recognizability in the industry.
Yeah, this is great. Blue said the next thing is Oz based on End of Lies of P. So that's pretty cool. They're gonna do Wizard of Oz. That's pretty rad. All right.
Wizard of Oz,
Now-
not the Wiz.
Not the Wiz.
I'm really digging just the fact that like everything that we've done for Memory Card Chronicles this week has been either Quake adjacent or Diablo adjacent.
Well, I remember that week where we only talked about, or sorry,
Oh,
you
dude.
only talked about every Dynasty Warriors and Samurai Warriors. Like there's some weeks where we just have this like
A theme.
thread of just like all the games released then. Remember that week where James had nothing but Call of Duty games? It was
That
just the
November.
Call of Duty
Yep.
month, and it was just like
Mhm.
we've got this, and we've got 4, and we've got Advanced Warfare, and we've got Modern Warfare 2.
Thanks. All right, guys. Well, that is the Memory Card Chronicles.
God,
Beautiful.
that sound takes me back.
All right, Nick, take us away with some quick quotes. Sick.
Sick. Always sick. Sorry I missed last week. A lot of stuff happened. I won't try to go down that route. I'll make it short and sweet this week because not a ton of news this week. If you could believe it. Last week we had lots of news and then I wasn't here. And this week we're kind of leading up to the Video Game Awards. So there's not a lot of movement right now. The financial reports have been released. There's not a ton of games that have come out in the last week, but a lot that are coming out soon. We're kind of hitting that zone of after Black Friday. Speaking of Black Friday, do you guys get any deals? Anyone pick up anything? Anyone in chat? Did you get a great deal on a game? Drop it in there. Let us know. I did not pick up anything this year. I think the games that were on sale, I almost bought God of War Ragnarok from Best Buy because they had it for $20. But then I got there and it was sold out. I waited a little bit too long. I brought my daughter with me. It's just like, I'll take my time. Up and it's gone.
Nope, nothing for me. I think I downloaded. I bought some DLC from some game I just was playing, but I can't remember. Nothing for me.
Yeah. Ace, nothing for you?
Nothing for me. My most recent purchase was picking up Shadow Labyrinth. But I do want to eventually get my hands on Marvel Cosmic Invasion since that just came out today.
Yeah, that just came out today. I was wondering if someone was going to mention that as part of the gaming history. It's like, oh, today, this game, the old school beat 'em
I don't
ups.
have a memory for it yet.
Core memory. We'll make one. While the Game Awards are right around the corner, and while plenty of people are looking forward to new announcements and trailers, we know already that Witcher 4 will not be showing off any new content. The company announced that this week, shortly after the game was nominated for most anticipated category, that they won't be bringing anything new for us. There is other Witcher news, though, if you're a fan of the series, as CDPR has confirmed on their late November earnings call that the next trilogy of games, so 4 and then 5 and 6, will aim to release all 3 titles in a 6-year period. Super aggressive for such a huge game and a huge franchise, but it's worth noting because CDPR has changed up their pipeline, their dev pipeline, to focus on longer pre-production and shorter production cycles. So going in with more of a plan, less feature creep, more focused on what they're doing. What do you guys think of that? Do you think they can release those 3 titles in that short of a turn?
I think that with the way that they're actually restructuring their production schedule, it's possible. Because I mean, if they're going in with more of a plan, focusing more on pre-production, that may mean that they would literally start, once they hit the ground running and they, finally solidify that foundation that they want to work with for The Witcher 4, they'll probably work from that foundation for 5 and 6 and just, have more of a steady development cycle as they just work through them.
Right.
So
That's not something unheard of to
yeah,
even like with TV shows nowadays, like shooting multiple seasons in a row because the production's already thought out. So it's something where it's really more so when you look at the video game industry and you look at something like Bethesda, for example, which Elder Scrolls 6 is still like, who knows how long until that, or Fallout 5 comes out. Just when you're talking about direction, pre-production, and design and everything being done early, like the difference you see in the industry, and then someone that's a big player making these giant games, because Witcher is not a small game. And they're like, we're going to do all 3 in 6 years in a release schedule. It's like, noteworthy.
That's very, very ambitious. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Well, speaking of maybe not ambition, but kind of release schedules. So Ubisoft has officially announced that Assassin's Creed Shadows will not get a second expansion. Ubisoft did say that it will still be getting fixes and some small content updates, but nothing on the size and scale of full-fledged DLC anymore. This is on the back of the company already canceling and scrapping the Seasons Pass for the title, and the team there has already moved on to the next Assassin's Creed game. So after all these years of build-up, wanting to go to Assassin's Creed in Japan, this is what happened. So I remember when it launched, there was a lot of kind of pushback, like that we saw from it, and then now this has happened. It's like, how are people going to remember AC Shadows?
The first part before it launched. That's majority will be judging that, not after, not the actual game, unfortunately.
Which is unfortunate because the game as a whole I thought was pretty good. At least the bits that I played. I didn't get to play through it all just yet. There's too many other things going on. But the game that was there was good. But yeah, like you said, everything leading up to it, and now they're just like pulling the plug, just kind of keeping it on life support and just getting fixes and stuff. That's not to say they're not supporting it, completely. It just means that no more full-scale DLC, just fixes and some fan requests and that kind of thing, just to kind of get it to a point where it's like, all right, that's good enough. On to the next.
I feel like that's a lot of like the gaming dev mentality. Not the dev's fault, but like the publisher like pushing a lot of product out. So that sucks. All I gotta say.
Well, we're now over a month into Arc Raiders launch, guys. I don't know if you two have played it or anyone in chat. The game is still super popular, if you haven't heard. Well, it hit Steam's player peak. Its player peak on Steam on November 16th. The game is still number 3 on the bestseller list on Steam. It could be considered 2 because the top seller is the Steam Deck right now, from what I saw. But the daily average player count on Steam is roughly 367,000 players, which if you compare that to Battlefield 6's daily average of 220,000. Now, again, that's just on Steam. That doesn't take into consoles or anything like that when you're talking about Battlefield 6 especially. But the fact that although it's not at its peak, it's still kind of showing growth and bumping around, and there's still content on the way. Just goes to show that a lot of people are connecting with Arc Raiders, and that makes me even more worried for Marathon. But we'll see what happens with that. You gonna say something, James?
I think like the popularity of Arc Raiders really has to do with social media that is happening around that game. Just because like I go through my reels and it's like 80% Arc Raiders. So once those guys get tired of making that content, I feel like Arc Raiders in itself is.
Well, the industry as a whole, if you're not on our Discord, Andre, shout out to you. I didn't see you in chat yet, but you posted that video by Mug Thief, about gamers that stopped buying garbage and AAA is confused. Link is in the Discord if you want to check it out. Interesting watch if you check it out, but just kind of talking about how everything we're hearing from the industry about like what's wrong, or where the money isn't anymore, and kind of where we're going as players. We're still spending the same amount of money. There's still growth in the industry. There's still games being bought, but the average spend is lower. We're spending just as much, but smaller scale, more games that we want to get, those more like indie kind of titles, because of the value that we're getting out of it. And Arc Raiders is kind of hitting that point right now where there's value for people. People are willing to put in that time, especially right when we're looking at Fortnite and its player numbers are just consistently just kind of dropping down. And that's not, it's still a massive game. They're still making a lot of money off of it, but you can see there's people are just trying to find other places to go, and Arc Raiders is
Market
kind of
share,
riding that
losing
wave.
market share, basically.
Yeah. Well, we are just days away from Metroid Prime 4's launch. Who would have thought, right? That is out on the 4th. This game was announced back in 2017, so needless to say, fans of the series have been patiently waiting, or not so patiently waiting. Well, it looks like some physical copies are out on the market already, if you didn't know. Multiple Reddit posts. What's
I
that?
have seen some headlines about that.
Yeah. So multiple Reddit posts have actually cropped up of people with pictures of the game in hand that have shown up, and it's not just people in like the back room of like the GameStop they work at. It's not like boxes; like people are getting it, and it certainly complicates the launch. I mean, the game has been under a close eye as you know the content releases online, and people have been talking about it. There's a little bit of pushback now about the amiibos and some stuff that's tied to the amiibos that you can't get otherwise. Nothing game changing, but just kind of like some quality of life stuff or some fun little extras. But yeah, Metroid Prime already out in the wild. Kind of crazy. Speaking of Nintendo, they decided about all the shares in Bandai Namco Singapore studio. So by spring of next year, the team will be under the Big Ends umbrella. If you're not familiar with them, some games that they've developed by this team specifically include Splatoon 3, Soul Calibur 6, and Ace Combat 7. So interesting
Did
for
they
the
do Smash?
future.
Because
Nope,
Smash is Bandai Namco.
Right, but this is Bandai Namco Singapore's office,
Yeah.
so they were tied to those ones. Not to say that maybe some of the team didn't work on those that weren't there, but nonetheless, Nintendo is taking it from Bandai Namco, so we'll see what happens there. World of Warcraft fans, we actually have an official release date for Midnight. If you didn't hear, so that is the next expansion that's coming out. That's going to be out on March 2nd. 2026. I personally haven't been connected to the game in quite a while, but this is the second expansion in the World Soul saga, which I'll admit had me interested when they're talking about it, kind of like reigniting my own interest in it. You know, really tapping back in. Give me my hit. They did also announce that if you want to buy the Epic Edition, Blizzard is going to give all those players who buy it early access. So the end of February. If you really need to get in there, you can pay extra. Speaking of paying extra, let's talk about Star Citizen. It may still technically be in alpha, but the poster child for Feature Creep keeps on space trucking. The game has just passed a new milestone, passing $900 million in funding. Still no release date in sight, but
I'm pretty sure Star Citizen is just money laundering at this point.
That's
crazy.
not to say that there isn't. Luke Stevens put out a video this last week as well, kind of talking about that, because he's actually played the game, and there's plenty of stuff there. You can see why people are into it, but like I would never spend hundreds of dollars on a ship. Like that's, I can see why they're hitting those numbers, man. But it's there's something there for people. It's just
I think
the game.
What's his face? Our Lord and Savior Mark. What's his name? Henry Cavill. Henry Cavill has a Star Citizen ad. He's like in the game, so
great.
He's basically the emperor.
He is the emperor. All right. So let's shift the tone a little bit. We're going to go to Rumor Mill. So again, as always, this is just take it as a grain of salt, just something a little bit to talk about. Again, not a lot of stuff right now going on, but there is a couple things. This first little Rumor Mill thing we're going to talk about, I'm just going to include it in the Rumor Mill because it's speculation, not exactly news. So a little transition there for you. But thanks to updates on its career page, Ubisoft's Montpellier-based team is staffing up again. What game does that studio work on, friends? It's Beyond Good and Evil 2. We were just talking about that this last month. Postings include lead quest designers, senior 3D character artists, senior VFX artists, and more. This is noteworthy because it's the first time there has been any indication on what development since some internal news that happened about over a year ago now. So it's crazy because I've got a fun fact for you. It's been over 17 years since Beyond Good and Evil 2 was first teased in 2008. This has now taken longer than Duke Nukem Forever to come out.
God.
That's why I don't have very high hopes for it. It's
Right.
too long.
This who knows like what kind of development hell it's in. Again, it's a rumor because there's nothing substantiated, but it's pretty crazy. They're staffing up again, and we might actually get Beyond Good and Evil 2, whatever it ends up being. Last little bit of rumor. Again, we're leading up to the Game Awards, so everything's kind of clamped down right now, but Jeff Keighley is getting cryptic online, so we got to talk about it right as we're leading up to the awards. If you did miss it, he posted a map pin online that led to a unique looking statue out in the desert. Lining up with this, industry insider Jez Corden is making it seem like this is lining up to be a rumor that the next Diablo 4 expansion will be shown off at the VGAs. The event is happening right after the season ends, and they've hinted at a reason to Jez rather has hinted at a reason to reinstall Diablo 4. So that with the kind of creepy looking statue that's out there, people are starting to line it up to things. There's a lot of people that could be a lot of different things, but it's starting to look like it may end up being something that
The
has to
timing
do
seems
with
appropriate
Diablo.
though, because they said they were gonna do like 4 seasons after Vessel of Hatred and then another one. So I feel like it's a right around the same
It's
time.
lining up, right? There's
Lining
a
up.
lot of reasons to kind of think that this could be the case, but hey, there we go. All right, I do have a article for you just to tie this up in a neat little bow, just because I thought it'd be something interesting to talk about. James will toss it in the chat, but let me share this. So Sega had a zoomed in. Sega had a discussion recently about how they see a discrepancy between their games review scores and sales. So Ace, you and I have talked a little bit about some of the games that we love from Sega. Everyone on this panel and most of the people in chat know that I'm a very big fan of the Yakuza games that Sega publishes. But Sega has acknowledged a growing disconnect between the critical reception and full price sale of its major game releases. Along with that video I mentioned earlier that Andre posted in our chat, we're kind of talking a lot lately about prices and where people are going with their money. Sega has pushed out a lot of games lately, and some of my favorite Yakuza games have been really well reviewed, but they're not seeing the sales numbers out of that. And there's a discussion to be had about why we think that's going to happen. The gaming giant is still investigating the issue, but shareholder pressure prompted Sega management to already share some of its preliminary findings, identifying several possible factors behind the slower than expected starts of recent titles. Thank you, Dominic, for writing about this.
So to my understanding, gamers are waiting for the definitive edition in games.
So
right?
that's one of the things they were going to talk about. So the executives acknowledged that recent full price launches have missed internal targets despite receiving generally favorable reviews. While no specific titles were named, nearly every major Sega release in recent years has either had modest launch sales relative to critical reception or struggled to sustain momentum. And a recent example of the latter phenomenon, Metaphor ReFantazio's sales dropped off sharply after the JRPG became Atlus's fastest selling title to date, clearing 1 million copies on day one, but needing another 8 months to double that figure following multiple discounts. I love Metaphor. It's an incredible game, and I'm really happy that I bought it. A lot of people who played it say the same thing. So it's kind of this feeling of just like, is it just like for the fans that are getting this? Is like the greater market not getting into it? Or are people going elsewhere with the money? Like, what's that going to be? They included some figures here. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit.
Ooh-wee.
I can zoom in a lot. So just some games release dates and some of the scores and launches. You can see like Infinite Wealth, Like a Dragon, 90 on Open Critic, 1 million sold in 1 week. Metaphor was 1 million in 1 day, 93. Persona 3 Reload, 87. Sonic X Shadow Generations, 80. So pretty well received titles that they've put out and decent sales, but nothing that's sustained, which is part of the reason they're having this discussion. Like James kind of hinted to, one of the things that they kind of pegged as like one of the main issues that's going to be is the definitive editions. So coming out with like Persona 5 Royal, for example, that has all the content and the extra characters, everything that you need. Their Q&A session saw it identify several potential reasons, as mentioned. It's a problem of its own making, is what they were kind of admitting to. This trend is largely driven by Atlas, known for long-standing practice of releasing expanded versions of its games, even prior to becoming a Sega subsidiary. Etrian Odyssey 2, Fafnir Night, Persona 4 Gold, and Persona 5 Royal. Very good examples of that. So why get the game when you can just wait for the re-release that has all the content in it, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people are going to hop on it unless you're a fan of the series, someone like me who's going to just buy Yakuza anyway. Luckily, there's not always definitive editions of those games. I get what I get out of it. But that has been identified, and now Sega's talking about an internal shift away from that strategy. So we may not see that happen anymore with them.
Oh, we're moving the definitive edition?
Something like that, potentially, or doing something where they don't release them in the same kind of schedule. It's down the line, like remaster, remake kind of territory, not trying to cannibalize its own long-term sales. We'll see. Again, this is just a suggestion. It's all internal stuff right now, but it suggests an internal shift away from the strategy because they've noticed it and they've clocked it, right? One of the other things they've kind of talked about was potential marketing missteps as contributing to a weaker than expected full price sales of its major titles. They said, quote, "We believe the problem also lies in our marketing, which isn't able to sufficiently convey the appeal of our games to users," which is something that can be said. These games tend to be for those kind of fandoms, I want to say, a little bit. So trying to get to a wider market.
Yeah.
Right. So getting to a wider market is going to be something they kind of run into. So it's a multi-factor kind of thing. And that's why I wanted to bring it to the panel and the chat to, kind of get your own take on it. The one example that was called out here was that trailer for Persona 3 Reload was super mocked. They brought in one of the stars of the Umbrella Academy, and it completely misrepresented the game, and a lot of people kind of called that out. So marketing missteps, cannibalizing their own sales. What do you guys think? What do you think about what's going on here at Sega? What do you believe the problem is?
Go ahead, Ace.
Honestly, just from a more consumer side point of view, I could.
Hey, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.
One of the big things that we look out for,
That wasn't that bad.
and one of the big things that keeps us from actually, one of the big things that keeps us from actually going for pre-orders or going for a game on launch is thinking, okay, what are they going to do as far as like season passes or DLC? Because it could be just as easy on our wallets to just hold off and wait for the pretty much expected definitive edition of these games at this point.
I mean, that could be part of it. Honestly, I think there are some gamers out there that want the complete purchase. They don't want to buy the game, DLC. But at that point, I don't think you're the target audience for what they're trying to do. So that's irrelevant. I think there's a couple things that are affecting it. Here's my take. Hear me out. So the first one is the push on digital. So I feel like there was a time where we get the standard, we play it, right? And then eventually down the road, we forget about this game or something, we'll go back to it. But then when that time comes, there's a full version, like definitive version, and we trade in that title to get that one as well. So there was a culture around that, right? To upgrading your purchase. So that's 2 sales already. So their push on digital games eliminates that. They probably weren't thinking about that, but that's one of the culture shifting. The other thing too is one of the things they can do is if they're removing the definitive edition, I mean, they could offer up that that the whole season already from the beginning. making it the definitive game. Like it would just like basically a season pass. So as the DLCs come out, you just play them all along, and then you get your sale from that initial release and that DLC. You know, because
Like the City of the Wolves, I'd imagine.
kind of like that. I don't think it'd be free, but I think it'd be available for you to get immediately when it comes out, or you get some sort of priority, because that locks in your investment, right? So what from what I'm hearing and what I'm understanding is probably because a lot of people are going, well, I know there's going to be DLC and there's going to be 5 of them, and then each of them are $10. Gamers are wising up. People have less money right now, so they are waiting for that definitive edition. So you have to consider that to make a pivot to how they want to capture their target audience. And also, you're right. I think the biggest thing that really impacts this is who it's targeting. These are not mainstream games, and if these are going to be mainstream games, they have to be shown as mainstream, right? They have maybe and I think that's why guest characters are important. So if they're in a mainstream game, like for example, if Ichiban shows up in Fortnite, I guarantee your sales will come up, and some sales will come up in, Like a Dragon, because they love the character, something like that, right? So yeah, that's just my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, it's interesting. And Blue, to your point, talking about Yakuza and shift in genre, like when it jumped to Like a Dragon, the older games were more niche or didn't have as big of a following. They definitely don't have the sales numbers as high as the new one, and part of that it's changed going to an international market. And maybe that's part of the problem that Sega's having, is these classic kind of like JRPG feel, like Metaphor and Persona is definitely like of a style for a specific genre. You're not going to get to a wider audience unless they change up their marketing. So they're trying things, but the marketing is falling flat, or it's not selling the games as they're supposed to be. And that could be said of the Yakuza games too. Like, fans got into Like a Dragon and realized that it was not the same game. The marketing didn't really belay that fact. It was like the developer diaries when they're talking about like, oh, now we've changed it to turn-based and here's the reason why. So yeah, Sega not being able to really sell it to people, I think could be part of a problem. But like you two talked about, like the definitive edition of these games, that's one of the reasons I jump on the Like a Dragon games like on day one. There's almost never a definitive edition. I never have to worry about that coming down the pipeline. I'll worry about HD updates, but then the Kiwamis, and I've said this before, as far as like Sega and RGG Studios, some of my favorite games to buy because they give you the best value when you buy physical. Getting Steelbook editions for no extra cost, or the Yakuza 6 Collector's Edition for $80, and you get 2 whiskey glasses, you get tatami mat, like drink mats, whiskey stones in there, like they're laser etched. It's really cool, and it's only $80. It was only like $20 more. So I've always felt like I've got my value from those games. But again, I've been following them for a while. I can't get my friends to play that for shit. Yakuza Zero has sold 2.2 million copies. Like a Dragon has sold 2.8 by June of this year. So it's just flat outsold it. But who knows? I remember the moment that those games came to Game Pass, and all of a sudden people were starting to play them and realize like how great they were. Like, yeah, man, it's who knows? But Metaphor's great. I love Persona. Persona 5 rather. So here we are. Interesting discussion, guys. Thank you for that. But chat, thank you for your input as well. That's what I have for news for the week.
Awesome. GG. We just need a GG like button or something. All right, guys. I wanted to bring back the roundtable since we were in the midst of conversation, right? And so, I hope you. Well,
I got the picture.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So this roundtable, what I had planned on doing was doing a topic, and the topic tonight was did kids in the 90s, did 90s games build a different kind of gamer? Oh man, this is some like millennial like propaganda right now. So hang on tight, boys and girls. We're going for a ride. All right, let me share my screen here, and we can kind of get going. This. Okay, so. All right. So as I'm reading these questions, Nintendo, top 100 Nintendo games playing in the background for y'all. But yeah, if this is your first time here and you've never experienced the roundtable, this is where every perspective gets a seat and every gamer brings their story. Tonight, we're diving into a topic shaped by nostalgia, frustration, challenge, and growth. That seems to be the overarching theme for this season's Gamer Quotient Gaming Academy. Did 90s video games with their brutal difficulty, limited lives, and zero handholding build a different kind of gamer? Let's break it down from all sides. Let's share our experiences and see what lessons from that era still shape us today. Now, the question is, did the games we grew up in the 90s, as you see on some of the screen here, once we get to the Super Nintendo era also, how they taught us through failure build a different kind of gamer than modern gamers do? So yeah, I kind of want to get you guys, real quick, yes or no, maybe no, what? Like just your quick input.
I'd say that's a definite yes, because more than anything, it wasn't just, the frustration surrounding the difficulty or even the difficulty itself that, built and inspired, a different and some would argue tougher generation of gamers. But it's really just the fact that we got by with a lot less.
Okay. And I'll be covering some of that here in my subtopics and talking points. But Nick, what do you have to say?
That's tough for me to say, to be honest. Yes, it was a different kind of gamer that played these games. The games were harder, just straight up, than what we get nowadays. And there's a lot of reasons for that, and I'm sure we'll get into it. But yeah, it's very different from modern games, man.
Cool. All right. So the first talking point that I'd like to introduce is called failure as feedback. So these are going to be kind of, the syllabus has the references and the sites for these, but basically this is a short version of those little excerpts. Back then we had limited lives, game overs, harsh punishments, right? So no more lives, back to the beginning of the game. No more continues, back to the beginning of the game. So that and I feel like during that time, we had to always kind of like reflect on like what happened there or where can I be better, right? But that's still common now these days. This is not exclusive to the era. But the question comes is, did constant failure build resilience and patience? And compare that to modern games today. I think the ability to have no save points is really this is what it boils down to, right? You kind of have to do it in 3 lives, right? Or 3 continues. Otherwise, you just start over.
The technical limitations was the main reason we were kind of pigeonholed to that. We had to deal with that. There wasn't a way around it. It wasn't like what we get nowadays with some modern games where we get to have that like difficulty slider where we can change what we want our games to be. Like we want more continues, less continues, or we want accessibility features so we can see things better. Like that's great. That's some great quality of life stuff. Back in the day, technical limitations, we couldn't have any of that stuff. So you only had 3. Or some of like the worst games, there was like no continues. It was one death, start over again. There wasn't. Yeah, there wasn't. There was very few games rather that had any kind of like save mechanic to it. Remember, we had to use passwords to get further in the game.
That was like the mechanic.
Yeah, that was the mechanic we had. You had to have a pen and paper to write it down because you couldn't take a picture with your phone. You didn't have a phone to take a picture with it. It was crazy. I would say it doesn't improve any of your patience. It didn't improve mine. Mine was worse because of these games. I get frustrated and I stop playing the game. Nowadays, I can kind of learn and I can go back and take my time or try it a different way. I couldn't do that back then. You had either had it or you didn't. I felt like
you had it or you didn't. That's a good video game ad. You had to have it or you don't. Ace.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where, like, I look at the technical limitations that we were, kind of saddled with at the time, and it's really more of a case by case thing, because again, you're talking to a guy who learned how to play fighting games on keyboard because I didn't have a controller I could hook up to a USB port, right?
Yep.
But it really all depends on the person as far as if they actually do, develop some kind of patience from, the constant retries and, the limitations of not having not having progress and checkpoint features to, you know, help you get through the remainder of a game.
Yeah.
So yeah, in cases where you only had like 3 lives and you didn't have any codes to give you extra lives to, make it through the game, you had to work with what was on hand.
Yeah. I agree. And I think the best example of this is like playing Contra without the cheat code is a totally different experience.
Yeah, you had to find out the Konami code from a friend.
Right. But like it just changes the way you play because there's so much more to lose when you have 3 lives versus 30, right? So it changes the way you play on that.
Let's talk about the ultimate limiting factor of games from this era: arcade games and money.
Yeah,
you ran out of quarters. You weren't playing anymore.
And then that was the design too, right? The games were designed to be hard and difficult. So here's actually that comes to my second point. No tutorials, no hand-holding, no YouTube, no glowing quest markers, no guided path. Players had to discover mechanics and secrets on their own. Trial and error as the core learning method. I think that's good. I mean, either that or you call Nintendo for $60 a minute.
Yeah, I think that's a really good example of the community factor of gaming back then, having to talk to your friends or a friend who had a magazine or a friend who could afford to call like the Nintendo helpline. Like remember buying the little booklets of like secrets of Nintendo, like we'd have to get. It's the only way to get this kind of stuff. We couldn't just look it up. Right, exactly. And it was just like someone had written it on a piece of paper, right, and printed it. It wasn't a video. You couldn't see exactly where it was. You had to kind of infer. So yeah, there was a lot of problem solving. A really good example, and I've just thought of this up the top of my head when you're talking about the last point. I look at someone who didn't play games in that era and are playing games nowadays. A good example being my wife again. We would play games together, and if she didn't figure out how to do something, she didn't have the same upbringing I had where you had to like trial and error, like you're saying, as like a core learning method. Like I learned to just try certain things in the game because of video game logic. You learn it in one game, you'd bring it to the next game.
Yeah.
That was that kind of learning you did back then. It was unique. It felt very unique for the time.
And I think that's what you just said there is why I think I'm so good at fighting games, because I just take whatever I learned from the old game applied to the new game.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah,
it also tells you what kind of games the player played. Like I'm really bad at recognizing patterns. Like whenever we play games together, like bullet hell games and fighting games, it's really hard for me. I could never do frame traps or understand like the exact pixel perfect kind of thing. I just never played those kind of games, so I never learned that. So those games didn't appeal to me. So it makes sense. Some people would kind of get into a genre, and that's just what made sense to them. Like with me, the RTSs early on, I played every kind of RTS. I got the general idea of it off the bat because I had learned it. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm trying out this new game, I'll see what it's like. Like, no, I know exactly what genre I'm playing.
Cool. Any input on that, Ace?
I'm definitely of the opinion that, I would like to see more games that actually did maybe a little less hand-holding these days, but still encouraged exploration and encouraged, experimenting and, working with the controls, trying out what's there. Press a button, see what it does. And then once you see what it does, you can start moving forward from there. But that's
shout out to Pi in chat for saying the same thing. Press every button, see what it does.
Exactly.
Legit. Well, yeah, it's the curious adventure of figuring out the game by experience and trying, right?
Bingo. And between that and just how it encouraged the social aspects of it, hooking up with your friends or your siblings or your relatives and seeing, what they know about the game and just working together to play through and solve the game like it's one giant puzzle.
Yeah. Yeah, and definitely like, this is why it's cool to like I don't mind hanging out with people while they're playing a game because I'm like I feel like that's also an different experience too. Pretty neat.
I mean, heck, in the Discord, with all the stuff that Jagos had been putting up about his playthroughs of Chained Echoes and Absalom, watching watching his reactions to a lot of the stuff that I've already, sat down and played through, and just being able to actually, you know, be there if any of the others sit down and start playing these games and they, need tips or, want to get a little bit of a leg up, they could ask one of us, okay, what buttons did you press? What did it do?
What it do?
Yeah, I mean, again, it kind of goes back to the limitations. We had to use our imagination for some of the story, unless you're playing the story specific games. So a lot of it was super obtuse, like that, and kind of jank controls. Like it was just harder to play them physically, or understand what was happening on the screen. Especially with like the limited palette of like colors that you got with some of these old games, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's going to play into it. It was just a lot harder to understand what you were doing. So, some of like the latest games with the better graphics and tutorials that do kind of like onboard you with like, here's the basic mechanics. It's like you get an understanding a lot easier than just you boot up a game like Metroid that it just showed. You boot up that game, it played a little bit of music, and then you're in it, and then you're just looking around, right? You just had
Yep.
to figure that out.
Yeah, that was like Metroid's actively one of the first search action games out there, Vania games, right? So I get that. Yeah, and I think that also goes toward our next one here. Number 3 is consequences and stakes. Losing progress meant starting completely over. Did higher stakes make victories more rewarding? Do modern games reduce frustration, but do they also reduce growth too? Question mark.
I think it
Thoughts on
depends on the game. There's a lot of people that love playing the Dark Souls games because it gives them a challenge that it's
Yeah.
different than what's on the market right now. So there's certainly opportunities. You're gonna, design games for what you think players are gonna want, and challenge is clearly what some people want. I can't do those games because I have no patience. So again, it goes back to the first conversation we had. When it's super obtuse or difficult, I just get frustrated, man. I want to enjoy my time when I play the game, not just be
Yeah.
frustrated.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
That's fair. That's fair. Ace, any input on that?
I'd say even with that though, like even with wanting to enjoy your time with the game, I still feel like you know pretty much from the start when you've got games that present their own unique challenges, you know, I feel like there's always going to be that satisfaction of overcoming them. I mean, it could be something like it could be something like getting past a difficult boss or finding a decent speed run strategy for Dark Souls, or it could be something as simple as just you know making it through a making it through a board of Tetris, or landing a couple wins on Mario Kart or Sonic Racing.
Yeah.
I want you to play Dragon's Lair, learn the entire game, and tell me if it feels like that was worth it when you get to the end of it. Because I can almost guarantee you it does not.
Yeah,
If you want to talk about pixel perfect and having to hit every jump or every like thing and just learn that with very little saves, you be my guest. Some people like it. It's just
there you go. There's content for your channel right there.
I have to. It's the type of game you choose. I choose these for different reasons, but it's not the kind of thing I want to spend my time with, especially now that's limited. I mean, back then you had how much free time as a kid?
Yeah.
And you had James. You and I have talked multiple times. You had about what's in front of you. I didn't have a Sega. My parents couldn't give me a Sega. I couldn't afford a Sega on my own, right? So you didn't play those games,
Right.
Okay. Cool. All right. Number 4. Actually, we talked about it already. Community through discovery. Friends, magazines, forums. Knowledge spread slowly during that time. Secret felt personal and earned. Does instant global information weaken mystery? It's just like getting spoilers to a movie, right? You watch and someone says like, "Oh, this is what happens." You're like, "No, what the hell? I wanted to experience it for myself," right? I also think it's a bonus if you beat the game and someone's like, "Did you do this?" And they're like, "No, I didn't even know that was there," and you get to play it again, get that experience. So
that reminds me of a very specific secret from the NES era. Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest, where you had to have a specific thing you had to lean or you had to like kneel in a corner for 5 seconds and a tornado would come and take you away.
Yeah.
Like, how would anyone know that? Like, how did that get out there? Where did that get shared from? Because that just blew my mind. Because like,
It was
who would know to do that?
there was the only way to figure it out is if you talk to every NPC and actually paid attention to what they were saying. That was the only way to do that.
Yeah.
And as a kid, you're like, you're not paying attention. You just
I can barely read. Why would I?
Yeah,
There's too
exactly.
many words. Apologize.
It's like, look, it's like, look, I don't have to pay for anything anyway, so why would I pay attention?
Yeah. My thing was like my biggest experience with Community to Discovery, honestly, was like secret characters in fighting games. The moment that I saw like Ermac, Noob Saibot in Mortal Kombat, or someone pick Idol in Killer Instinct, I was like, whoa, how did you do that, bro? You know, like your child brain just melts and you're just like, tell me the codes. And then the guy you're playing against picks those characters and you just get mad because you're like, cheating. You're the strong character. Good times.
Yeah, secret characters are definitely part of the community discussion, especially when people show up to arcades and they do the specific way of whatever with the joystick and the right pattern and then hover on the right thing and then it spins. You're just like, what is this? How did you find this out?
Yeah,
flex on some fools in the arcade.
Yeah, that's like extreme pattern acknowledgement that I'm good on. I'm passing on that. Speaking of skills, these are the suggested skills that 90 Games built. Persistence, pattern recognition, there it is. Strategic planning, adaptability, emotional regulation. That's an interesting one.
Oh, yeah, emotional
memorization. That's I can see that. Like, I think that goes with pattern recognition, honestly. Learning through trial and error. That's how I got a lot of my skills, honestly, from that as well. Games enhance cognitive flexibility and critical thinking. Fact. So, any comments on those skills? Anything you want to add?
Hand-eye coordination.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely hand-eye coordination.
It's not really gaming, but it kind of reminds me of if you grew up in this era, you definitely had like middle school, intermediate school, elementary school, where you had a computer class, and Mavis Beacon was part of our lives. You learned not to look at the keyboard while you typed, or you tried not to. It kind of reminds me of like playing some games, just learning to hit the buttons just right without looking at it and figuring that out.
Muscle memory.
Yeah. What's up?
Training muscle memory.
Yeah, muscle memory for sure. Yeah, I mean those skills definitely fit. I don't think there's anything I'd add to it. I mean, there's skills that you can get from just doing things in general, and this is definitely stuff you'd pick up because these games were honestly still tied to the design philosophy of arcades. And we mentioned it before about, quarter munching the engagement back then was just trying to get the most out of you in a short amount of time. And that's what games were back then. So we said technical limitations, but design philosophy was very different than it is today too. Now we're talking about, games as a service. Right now they're developing it just to get as much time out of you as possible. It's like complete opposite.
It's kind of like
so it's just a complete flip of philosophy in the way that these devs are approaching it and the way that we interact.
Yeah, the next one actually fits right in with modern gaming comparison. Accessibility versus challenge. What modern games teach? Teamwork, creativity, and narrative empathy. Are newer games easier or just different? I think they're just different. Because the core purpose of each game is still there. It's how complicated is it to that extent of the game.
Yeah.
So I think that one's pretty simple. Okay, last one. Generational identity. Did 90s gaming shape a mindset of grit, problem solving, and just figure it out? Is that identity still relevant or is it fading?
I'd actually go somewhere of a middle ground on this. That identity, that mindset it's still relevant, and it can still be.
I love this game.
It can still be applied to most modern games, but at the same time, again, it's the fact that it's not necessarily that the mindset is better or worse, simply that it's different and just time passing, mindsets passing, the culture of game design, the culture of gaming as a hobby and as an industry has changed to the point where that mindset really doesn't it doesn't have as much of a hold as it did, again back in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, I think the conversation to be had, honestly, before I end this is, like there was even a shift on the PS2 era to the 360 when they started making like third person adventure games where I noticed in the PS2 they didn't really have maps and quest markers yet, right? And then games soon after that, when games got more complicated, like they started adding those as a quality of like life for the game because some people will get frustrated like I can't find anything, I don't know, I'm lost, right?
Yep.
So I think that was to obviously they want to sell more games so it can't be too frustrating because they don't want to isolate their main audience, right? So I get that for
Well, if
sure.
they make it unapproachable to people,
Oh yeah.
period, it's not going to sell. And again, it's the philosophy has changed with gaming. So I mean, for generational identity, man, I would say personally in response to this, just to me at least, straight up no, because I have a lot of friends who did game in the '90s that don't have the same mindset that I do, or the one person next to them. A lot of that is, we're talking about nature versus nurture stuff. Maybe a little more esoteric outside the level of this, but we had a good time in the '90s. A lot of us played games together, and I just will always remember the social times. Whether or not people feel like they problem solve more because of games, I think that's going to be a personal thing. Depends on the games
Yeah.
you played.
And also like those old games are still around in like indie form. Like there's still people making those kinds of games.
I think you know what. Before I close on that, and before you move on, this is a really good example of something that happened recently to me. Just like going back and playing an old game that I had never sat down and played, and being confused and having to look up stuff. And that was Link to the Past. I never played the SNES version of that, and I bought a SNES Mini recently so I can play it with my daughter. And I was like, I'm going to jump through some of these games. I never really sat down and played. I'd like certainly put them on before or seen friends play them. I had never played that on my own, and like I figured out Ocarina of Time pretty well, and that's my personal favorite. But the SNES version of the game, like I could not find certain things no matter how much I looked around. You had to go a very specific spot. Like I had to look up things to figure it out because it wasn't explained at all. It was very different. And it's just like I don't have the time to figure this out. And maybe
Yeah.
that was part of the thing we're getting at. When I was a kid, I had the time just to go around the map 20 times to figure out the one thing to problem solve it. Nowadays, like I'm an adult. I have an hour before my baby wakes up. Like,
Mhm.
let me look this up. I just want to get the next heart piece.
Yeah. But I think like you have to also consider when the game was made, product
Mhm.
of its time. So I get what you're saying for sure on that. And yeah,
Right.
ultimately it comes down to how much time we have. you know. So fantastic. Well, tonight's roundtable showed us something super powerful, guys. 90s games didn't just challenge us, they shaped us. But, taught us patience, resilience, curiosity, and the value of learning through failure. Yeah, like Dark Souls right there. Whether you grew up in that era or joined gaming later, the real takeaway is this. Every generation of gamers learns differently, but every struggle, every retry, and every boss fight still builds. And that's pretty much what keeps us leveling on the screen and in life. And with that said, this round table is adjourned. Thank you for that coin. All right. Yeah, there you go. There's the link to the past clone for Sega right there for you. So beyond away. No, banger of a game, by the way. Banger of a game.
It is on the Sega Genesis Mini, by the way.
Yeah,
If you
what I missed,
pick on that.
unfortunately. All right, let's get to it. Let's get to the special version of the final boss. Oh, wrong one. All right. So tonight is a little bit different. I'm gonna add a little bit of a twist to this. So, one of my favorite things in life is to share the hero's journey by Joseph Campbell, and I try to integrate that with tonight's final boss because this season of Gaming Academy, it's all about growth, becoming better, and improving. Right? Tonight's lesson reaches all the way back to the roots of storytelling, back to the myth, back to the heroes, to the blueprint behind every video game journey we've ever taken. Whether it's Kratos, Cloud Strife, Link, Aloy, Geralt, Samus, or your character in Elden Ring, they are all walking the same path. All right. So check this out. I got a awesome video and playing in the background for this. Not that one. This one. All right. So let's get to it. This is your tonight's final boss. Now, tonight's lesson teaches us a variety of different things. Okay? All right. Bosses don't shrink, you grow. That's the point of my story tonight. In every great game, there's a moment where the hero cannot go back. This is the call to adventure. Link picks up the sword in Ocarina of Time. Cloud falls into the world of Avalanche. Sora loses his island to the Heartless. Commander Shepard sees the Reapers. And Mario learns that Peach has been kidnapped, again, because Bowser needs hobbies. And the Tarnished wakes up Elden Ring. These moments are called the call to the adventure. The moment you're pushed forward to something bigger than yourself. Now, Joseph Campbell said, the biggest question is whether you are going to be able to say a hearty yes to your adventure. Most players don't feel ready. Most heroes don't feel prepared. But they go anyway. Now, in gaming, the road of trials is every wipe, every game over, every respawn, every grind session, and every mistake that teaches you something new. You learn margins, delays. You memorize Stan's own path. You study Ganon's tells. You understand Sephiroth's spacing. You practice wave dashing in Smash Melee until it becomes instinct. Your grind hunts in Monster Hunter to master invincibility frames. You study speedrun routes in Metroid or Celeste. This is the growth hidden inside repetition. This is the Campbell stage where the hero meets allies, enemies, and learns the rules of the world. Campbell said, where you stumble, there lies your treasure. Every failure is XP, every mistake is data, and every retry is courage. Now, the next one, every game has that moment. We all know this. The Water Temple in Ocarina of Time, Ornstein and Smough in Dark Souls, Millennia, the Blade of Miquella. I am Millennia, I have superiority complex. Sephiroth's one winged angel moment. That was mine. Gleam in Smash Ultimate. Psycho Mantis, reading your memory card, right? First time Resident Evil locks you in with Mr. X, scares the shit out of you. And Vitalis in Monster Hunter. Now, Campbell said, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. This is the cave. This is the fog gate. This is the turning point. The boss feels enormous not because it grew, but because you haven't yet. Okay? Now, in gaming, there's always iconic moments. And here comes the revelation. The moment you return to a once impossible challenge, and suddenly, the attacks look slow. You dodge instinctively. You parry with confidence. You know the animations by heart. That's me separate. And you understand the boss theme as a language. This is the same revelation Campbell described. The hero discovers within himself capacity for a higher existence. Think about that moment you first meet Emerald Weapon, the Radiance in Hollow Knight, or the Valkyrie Queen in God of War. How about the Lingering Will in Kingdom Hearts 2? Any raid boss in Final Fantasy XIV. That game didn't live. You just got better. Now, in the hero's journey, the final step is always the return. The hero comes back stronger, wiser, changed. In gaming, defeating the boss unlocks new weapons, new zones, new abilities, new understandings, new confidence, and new versions of you. You're the hero. Campbell said, the hero comes back from this mysterious adventure with the power to bestow boons on his fellow man. Your growth helps you grow strong. Whether it's sharing what you learn with friends, supporting your community, fire shirts, inspiring your guild, motivating your team, or simply leading your family. Even just becoming a version of yourself who makes the world better. Your victory becomes their buff. Here's tonight's final message for the hero's journey. Life's challenges won't shrink. The world does not adapt to you. You adapt to the world. But you will grow until they no longer scare you. Just like every great hero, just like every player who kept going, just like every character who stepped into a fight where they weren't ready for it, you won't defeat bosses by waiting for them to get easier. You defeat them by becoming the person who can win. That's the hero's journey. That's your gaming journey, and that's your journey. You trained, you leveled up, now face your final boss. That is tonight's final boss moment. All right. Takeaways, chat. Anything? What you guys got?
Well, it's honestly that whole, especially that last part, it really just brings me back to, again, that great line at the end of BoJack Horseman. Does it get easier? No. You just get better.
That is facts, for sure.
I'll agree with that for sure. I mean, the part we were talking about, you'll grow until it no longer scares you. That's something that I dealt with when meeting new challenges, or when I decided to go back to school, something I was unsure about, I was anxious about. It's one of those things that you're just kind of forced to. You're going to grow, and you're going to get to the point where you're comfortable. You're not worried about that anymore. You're no longer scared of it.
My mentor is at work, and because I hang out, my clientele is real estate agents. They definitely go to these motivational speakers and stuff like that. And they share their wins. They share their takes on these events. And one of the biggest thing that really resonated with me, middle of the year, was comfort is the enemy of growth. Right? So if you're comfortable and you're just coasting, it means you're safe, and that's okay. But are you growing? The fact is you're probably not, because you have to get uncomfortable and face that call to adventure that's demanding you to be better, right? And it's most likely challenging you that you can do it. You just don't know it yet, right? So the message tonight, guys, if there's things in 2026 you aim on doing, I know Andre always, I love his takes and his input when he says, I want to stream more, I want to do this more, I want to do this less. These are all calls to his adventure, and he's aware of it. Now, the time span where he does accept the call is up to him. But know this, if you take that call, there's no going back. Imagine if you were sent on an adventure, right? And you're like, the village goes, good luck on your journey, we're rooting for you. Right? And this is the scary part. 2 days later, you're like, I can't do it. Come back to the village. And you're back to where you were. Right? That's scary. People don't want that. But, that's why we are building you up on this channel. We're trying to make you a better gamer, a better person overall. We're using gaming to make you become a better individual, right? For you and the people around you. That's kind of my goal with this channel. Especially this year, we're going heavy on that. And I feel like a lot of people are appreciating it. I know Andre tells me he appreciates it a lot all the time. Every person I talked about, what's your channel about? I use gaming as a form and medium to improve gamers' lives all across the internet. That's what Gaming Academy should be about, right? Heck, we talk about stuff that we enjoy and we love, and that's all good. But something that you should take away from Gaming Academy, all you 18 people watching, fantastic. I love that. It's got to be a record. Is this: you are the hero to your adventure. answer the call to that adventure. Never fear about looking back. They'll always be there for you. But the moment that you make it past and you regret, you can never get it back ever again. So just take it. It's okay to fail. We talk about that in this channel all the time. But when you stand up, as you trained and you fought, and now you're facing the final boss, that's what matters and that's what counts, right? And you just get back up, you try again, right? And you do it over, and just know there's a whole community here for you that's rooting for you, right? Drop us a line on Discord, send us a DM on our socials, whatever. Discord would be great. We'd love for you to just chat in there and just partake in the conversation, and just know that we're here for you. Okay.
And we're always taking those kind of submissions. If you got an article or something you think that's worth talking about on here, we see that. It's posted. Jagos is doing a great job of throwing that stuff in the newsroom. If you got some as well you want us to chat about, put it in there. We want to see you on the Discord.
Honestly, Jagos, like in the Now Playing channel, he's like VIP in that channel. Like I love watching his adventures in the game.
He's raised his level just by being active in that channel.
And I feel like I'm on a journey with him with the way his narrative works in the channel. I'm like, dude, this guy is like telling a story. Like, and I'm learning. I'm playing Chain of Echoes by watching you post. And that's pretty cool in my opinion. But yeah, any last statements before we close out for the night?
It's been a pretty solid show. I mean, yeah, we don't have any of the tech this week, largely because I got knocked down.
But you got to get back up, buddy. That's it.
Yep, but we will have a nice little session next week, that's for sure. But
Just remember the immortal words of Chumbawamba. I get knocked down, but I get up again.
That is one word I would have never heard tonight.
Chumbawamba? Oh man, Chumbawamba.
Yes. But real talk though, just it's as always, it's great having really awesome, sitting down and having that roundtable. Really talking about not just the fact that games have shaped us, especially over the course of our childhood, and not just the games, not just the fact that games that had shaped us and what games shaped us, but how.
It's a big one. Big deal. All right. Well, I'm going to put up my grifter link down below. Nick, close us out for tonight.
All right, folks, that's going to wrap up class number 55, and tonight hit a little different in a good way. We spent some time in the 90s, and look, as someone who grew up getting wrecked by rental games I had to return in 48 hours, yeah, I'd say those experiences built something in us. You can call it grit, you can call it trauma, you can call it why the hell didn't this game have a save feature, whatever it was, it shaped us. We talked about failure as feedback, old school discovery, and how games used to throw you into the deep end with nothing but 2 buttons and a dream. And whether you started gaming back then or yesterday, that mindset is still worth carrying. Try again, figure it out, get better, repeat. We hit the news, rumors, and stuff, and the stuffs publishers wish we didn't talk about, from Metroid leaks to Beyond Good and Evil 2's eternal development cycle, now going past Duke forever. Maybe it'll be forever till we see it. And somehow Star Citizen still isn't out. Shocking, I know. That James hit us with a final boss that, I'm not going to lie, kind of slapped. Bosses don't shrink, you grow. And if that doesn't sum up gaming and life in one line, I don't know what does. So on behalf of the whole Academy crew, thank you for hanging with us. Thanks for thinking with us. And thanks for being part of the conversation. Study smart, play harder, stay curious, and we'll see you next time for class number 56. This is Nick, aka Tragically Elite, logging out before I start another debate. So have a good night, everybody.
Have a good night, guys. See you next week.